Points.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Broad Points Podcast. I am your host, the broad that points, the broad with the points. It's me, Tyler, the lady. And to start off this podcast today, I want to say happy 1 year of the Broad Points Podcast. Yes, thank you to all of my listeners for joining me on this journey as we have embarked on releasing new episodes of the Broad Points Podcast. We have shared stories, we have shared guests, and I'm just truly honored to be here. I love getting to share this information with you. I love getting to share myself with you. And being able to build connection, being able to build community, it's really all I wanted. It's all I want when I started this podcast a year ago. I can't even believe that it's already been a year. 3/11 is the official birth date of the Broad Points Podcast, in case you're wondering, or you wanted to add it to your calendar. 3/11 day. And, I didn't tell Alina Bear, our last guest, when she was on, that she was actually going to be the last guest for the year. And so if you missed that, go take a listen back to episode 40 of the Broad Points Podcast with my special guest, Alina Bear. We talked about so many fun things on there, and I can't remember if we mentioned it on the podcast or not, but we did talk about growing up from a place of defiance. And this morning, as I was writing my show notes, I was operating from a place of defiance, as I usually do when I write my show notes, because I write them in cursive. And cursive, a few years ago, was announced that they were not going to be teaching it in school anymore, and that it was going to become extinct. And that was really crushing to me. I don't know why it hit me so hard, because I've never been a super cursive fan. I've always been very judgmental about my cursive. I never thought it was pretty enough or loopy enough. And so I didn't do it. Oh my gosh, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And then once I heard that it was going to become extinct and they were not going to teach children anymore, I decided that I was going to heavily adapt cursive. So although I do still write normal from time to time, my main writing is in cursive these days. And I do have to say it looks a lot better if I'm going to put judgment on it, but it really is just continuing to show up. And the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And one thing that I know for certain Alina brought up on last week's podcast is, how did we begin? Right? How did we begin dance class? How did we begin doing everything? What made us do it? What made us keep doing it? And so for me, what I decided with cursive, it was the fact that it was going to be extinct. For dance classes with me, I was reflecting on this, and right around that time, I had self-isolated for so long. I had really shrunk my world down. I had done all the healing that I was going to do. And I knew that my next step, it was getting out into the community. I didn't fully understand what that was going to be like or what that was going to look like, but I knew it was integrating myself into the new community that I had moved into. And so I had met this dance instructor months before. She had had options for forever, and finally I decide to go, and I decide that I am going to purchase a class pack. Yep, a class pass of multiple classes means that you're obligated to go multiple times. I call it giving it a fair shake, right? Giving it a fair chance. And this definitely is inspired by my history with dance. before I go into the successes and the triumphs of my dance now, I'm going to tell you where I started. And that is a ballet class. One solo ballet class. I can't remember exactly how old I was for said ballet class, but I was young. I was, a pudgy child. I didn't think I was like super bendy. I've never been able to do the middle splits. I'll put that into perspective now. But in ballet, that's important. They need you to be very bendy. And so my very first class, I just remember going in and they're like trying to push me up against a wall to do the middle splits and just telling me how terrible I am. As a child, receiving feedback like that of how terrible you are on day one, I'll tell you right now, I never went back to that class. I'm very grateful for my mother and father for being respectful of my wishes and allowing me to not do things that I didn't want to do. However, I don't really think that I gave ballet a fair chance, right? We're always talking about how unfair life is, and I don't really think that I gave ballet a fair chance because I went once. I saw that I wasn't good at it, and I decided that's it for me. And that is something that Alina and I talked about, either showing up and doing it once or even not showing up at all if you know you can't do something perfect right away. And so I let that go. Ballet was never going to be for me. That was that. And then, I moved into my, we'll call it living room performance era, right? Where we're doing that. My friends and I, not always in front of our parents. We had some very interesting styles of dance back then that I don't know that I would feel fully comfortable dancing in front of my parents at that age. So, I had a lot of friends who maybe their parents weren't home. And so, we would just be dancing basically for ourselves or to build a routine so that we could do it at school in gym class. I love the fact that we learned dances in gym class. It just always cracks me up. Or that we got to perform in gym class, rather. Later in life, I did have a friend who taught us dance in gym class, so also true, but not what I was referring to. So, by buying a class pass as an adult for these dance classes, what I was really doing, right, let's connect the intention behind the action here, is I was committing to trying. I was committing to multiple times of progress, right? Not perfection, because I knew I wasn't going to get it all, and every dance class is a different song, so like, how could you? But I was committing to myself. I was committing to the community. I was committing to honestly giving it a fair chance, just to really be fair, right? Everybody wants to complain about life not being fair. Be fair to yourself. That's what I'm going to say. Be fair to yourself. And so I just wanted to give you guys that little bit of detail on how did I start? I committed. I full sent it. Yeah, full send sometimes, you guys. You have to say, I really want to do this. Like, I knew I really enjoyed dancing. I've always enjoyed dancing my entire life. So why wouldn't I want to learn new moves? Why wouldn't I want to connect with new women in the desert? Like, there's just too many reasons to not do it. And that is another thing that Alina mentioned, is weighing the pros and cons, but just the end scenarios, right? So if this goes absolutely terrible, what will happen? And this is actually so funny because I went to that twerk and heels class later on that day with her. And on my way there, I was driving and I was totally feeling the nervousness. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And I was thinking about my platform heels that I was going to wear to the class. And I was like, well, I could fall. I could die. I could break my neck. I could break my ankle. I could break my leg. I could break my arm falling over because I'm going to be so high up there. And it was just making me laugh how dark I could get. And then I told myself that I was excited and I said, what's the best thing that could happen? And the best thing that could happen, honestly, is I look hot. I crush it. I am inspirational, right? We lead always. We're always setting an example. So for me to go in confident, for me to go in and like show people like I'm here to have fun, I'm here to connect, I'm here to laugh, it just gives everybody else permission to do the same. And so it was a really fun dance class. If you see Alina at twerkinprogress_ online and you want to join one of her classes, or you want to join the twerk and heels next time she does it, I 10 out of 10 recommend, you guys. So with that, let's get to this week's fundamental phrase, eh? It is, the prettiest thing you can wear is a smile. This is a really funny phrase to me. It also is a great fundamental phrase because it reminds me of the mind-body connection. How, do you ask? Well, when you recognize that the prettiest thing you can wear is a smile, it means the only thing that is going to make any difference on you is all in your control. It's all in your control, right? The prettiest thing that you can put on is a smile. It's you. It's being authentically you. And when we smile, there is actually science behind it. So the science of smiling is when you perceive something as happiness, and I say it like that because not everything means happiness to everyone, right? Like some people see the rain and they're happy that it's raining because they're like, oh, the plants, I live in the desert, the rain, it's so beautiful. Then you get people in Seattle who have just been rained on for 9 months straight and they're like, hate the rain, right? Because they've just had enough of it. They're over it. So the same factor, right? It does not mean happiness, right? So if somebody else has something and you think you need to have that, take a step back. Just take a step back, because the different factors, those different external things outside of ourselves, do not equate happiness. It is what we perceive as happiness, which can be anything, right? That then is triggering these neurotransmitters within our brain. And once these neurotransmitters are being sent, right, throughout our brain, throughout our body, our spine, it gets sent out everywhere. And these neurotransmitters, what are they, you ask? Dopamine and serotonin. Yes, more things that exist within you, your natural systems. Right? There have been times when I've been so sad and so depressed, and you just kind of have to trick yourself sometimes. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of like playing a trick on yourself, but it's a good trick. It's a happy trick. Just smiling. And I think, honestly, going back to Ailina, such a good podcast, you guys. Go check out episode 40. We talked about how humor just plays such a big role in, balancing, your happiness, your mind-body connection, and all of your systems, they are connected. So once you start to send out, these happiness chemicals, the dopamine and serotonin, into the rest of your body, our circulatory system starts to kick in, right? Like that blood flow. Maybe we start to feel a little flushed in the face, or the stomach butterflies, right? Or our autonomic nervous system, right? Our breathing, our salivation, our sweat, right? Sometimes when I'm really excited, I can't eat. Like my body just it can't process the food because I'm just so excited. And so it's about learning your body. It really is. And knowing different tools to put you in different places. And this fundamental phrase really, to me, it's so funny. It's so stupid. And it makes me laugh because, in times when, maybe you feel like garbage, I'm thinking back, honestly, to, I don't know why, when I was hungover, I just felt like garbage. And you know, you don't want people to see, you're like still kind of low key trying to hide it, and you don't want to be out there in the world. There's no amount of makeup that you can put on. One, I don't think you should have to. There's no hats, clothes, sunglasses, nothing that you can do that's going to suit you as well as putting on a smile. And truly, it's because everything is connected. I mean, once those happiness chemicals are released into your body, you know, your posture, you know, everything starts to change. And it all just happened with one little thing. Like, we just did one little thing. And before we know it, the snowball effect is upon us. And the growth it's there. And so this is a little trick that I can't get enough of, you guys. I'm always smiling. And I used to have, I would say, really bad resting bitch face. Because I grew up in a place where you did kind of have to think about survival from time to time. You did have to seem tough when you walked around. And so the RBF was a big thing back then. And I really did have to change that. I was noticing that I was feeling very angry and very on the defensive, walking around just, you know, constantly with a furrowed brow, rather than just smiling and telling myself that I'm safe. There are so many different actions that start to fall into place once we just make one tiny little change. And so I love this, and I love smiling. And so I hope that this gives you a smile. I hope that this fundamental phrase can maybe give you a laugh, right? And also, just don't take stuff so seriously, for real. Like, we can laugh at stuff. We can let stuff go. The more stuff that we let go, the more opportunity, the more space that we have to grab what we want to see in our world. And by starting this podcast a year ago, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's been a year, I really just wanted to connect with people and just share a perspective. And it just started with one podcast. And now we're at a whole year. Like, it doesn't have to be you're thinking about the full next year. It can just be this moment. And some other ways, you know, maybe that, you know, maybe you don't want to smile. Maybe you can't do it. I don't know why. Maybe physically, we've talked about how physical reactions just sometimes aren't in alignment with what we want to happen. You can't do it. Well, maybe there's some other ways that we can trigger those neurotransmitters, right? We can definitely walk. We can pet animals. Ooh, I love petting animals. There's this husky that walks down on the main street that I walk in the morning, and he's just the fluffiest husky. And I do feel much better after petting him usually, but I'm also walking. Walking is so good for you guys. Like, seriously, that's why I start my day with it. You know, starting it off by releasing those neurotransmitters, letting my body know that, like, we're going to be happy today. Today's going to be a good day. You know, you can hug people, you can kiss your loved ones. Only do these things with consent. Never touch people without consent. But I love hugs. The energy exchange that happens after a 30-second hug is next level. I hug people so tight, I don't want to let them go. And honestly, I get a lot of compliments on my hugs. So if you ever see me, feel free. Ask me for a hug, because I would probably love to give you one. Just like I'd love to be your friend. Like, I'd love to talk about this podcast. I'd love to talk about life. So if you want to reach out to me, you can find me at Broadpoints or at Tyler the Lady on social media. Or if you do want to compose me an email, you can send it to broadpointspodcast@gmail.com. You know, I really am interested in hearing more from you guys. So you just stay in touch. I'll stay in touch. And if you just so happen to be looking for Zero shoes, I got you with that Zero affiliate link, you guys. You can buy your Zero shoes and simultaneously pay me. I did finally get a pair of Chelsea boots, the Chelsea boots that I wanted. They are called the Tari, I believe is how you say it, Tari. And I'm just so excited to wear them. I mean, everybody's always rocking these Chelsea boots with these super pointy toes, and they cute. I'll give you that. They cute. However, my little Flintstone toes, they don't like being all jammed up. We don't like that. We need space. Give me space. Which is why I love Zero shoes. Seriously, the mind-body connection, body-earth connection is wonderful. I love being able to feel like I'm actually balanced, like I'm actually in contact with this planet. I've really had some thick-soled shoes where I just didn't even feel like I was really here. And so I love Zero shoes. So if you do want to pay me when you buy them, you can use my Zero affiliate link. It is zeroshoes.com/go/Tyler the Lady. And that is Zero with an X, you guys. Zero with an X. Live feet first. That's their slogan. I always say Zero with an X because they're edgy. Seriously, if you do want to reach out, though, I really would love to hear from you. I've been receiving great feedback on my podcast guests, on this podcast in general. I love to hear it. You know, if there's somebody that maybe you want to hear in the future, please, I'm open to suggestions. I'm not going to make any promises, but I'm open to suggestions. Like, I really do want to share as many perspectives with you guys as possible. I really look forward to this next year of Broad Points with you, having more guests, more perspectives, more choices, more tools for you guys to be able to utilize. And so, cheers. Let's do that fundamental phrase one more time to wrap this week up. The prettiest thing you can wear is a smile.